Today I'll be discussing the impact of mowing on the environment and more specifically, the benefits of carbon reduction as they relate to mowing. My guests this morning are Dan Scheid, who is Director of Grounds at Cornell University, and Carl Schimenti, who is Extension Support Specialist with Cornell's School of Integrative Plant Science. Dan, let's start with you. If you could tell me just a little bit about the grounds at Cornell, total acres that you're responsible for, mowable acres. I know you have some meadows there as well.
Yeah, Dan, we have, our main campus is about 1,000 acres, but Cornell's a pretty significant landholder in New York State, so we have lands all throughout the area. But we'll talk primarily about the areas right around Cornell and the adjacent properties that are just off the main campus. From a mowable perspective, we have about 350 acres of mowable turf that's managed. And of those, we've converted about 10% or about 35 acres into meadows. And most of those, as you'll see from the pictures behind Carl and I, are sloped areas that actually had some mowing challenges that we're able to turn into meadows.
And what led you to investigate the impact of mowing on carbon reduction?
I think it was twofold, Dan. It actually started prior to my arrival at Cornell in 2008, 2009 timeframe. And as I understand it, Cornell was looking at a 2035 carbon neutrality goal. And also we were faced with the financial crisis at that time, and there were some staff reductions and whatever. So I think some of it was, are there some areas that we can manage differently? But I think probably the primary reason was looking for opportunities to start reaching that goal that's up and now about 12 years.
And Carl, I know you've been involved and you've been conducting research related to carbon reduction and carbon sequestration as it relates to mowing and turf management. Can you tell us a little bit about those efforts?
Yeah, so one of the things Dan and I are working on is this carbon offsets group at Cornell, right, trying to achieve that carbon neutrality goal by 2035. And really a lot of things Dan has been doing for many years. We started to quantify and figure out what is the carbon reduction of certain strategies, like raising our mowing heights, right, from maybe 2.5 inches to 3 or 3.5 inches. The meadow areas you see like in these backgrounds, how much gas are we saving and how much carbon emissions are we reducing from the going into the atmosphere. So when we look at those numbers, really it's a pretty easy calculation. Just what's the reduction in fuel use, and then you can convert that to kilograms of carbon dioxide. So when we look at the meadow areas, about 35 acres on campus now, those went from 25 to 30 mowing events per year. We had to do some assumptions there to basically one mowing event in the fall. So we compared the fuel use differences there and came up basically with a number about 4.5 metric tons of carbon per year we save just from the mowing areas. And then from the reduction in mowing from Dan raising the mowing heights. So going, about an inch up in mowing heights, about 3.5 inches now. We save anywhere from 7 to 10 metric tons. It depends on how we do sort of the calculations on mowing frequencies there, but 7 to 10 metric tons of carbon per year.
And Dan, how has this research affected your decisions when it comes to turf management on campus?
Well, it's got us a little energized. We're looking for opportunities. We may talk a little bit about the carbon sequestration. We've talked about the reductions, but the carbon sequestration is actually the carbon sequestered in the soil. So we're going to be getting to do some research to see if in the meadow areas there's actually more carbon sequester because the roots are deeper, and so they're able to pull the carbon deeper into the soil profile. So it actually is one of the things that makes working at Cornell so invigorating. There's opportunities. It's not the same old thing. You're doing something different. For gosh sakes, I get to interact with Carl on a regular basis. How much better can it be than that? So anyway, I think that that we continue to look for areas that we can manage more naturally.
It's very interesting efforts that you're undertaking, and I know they're evolving Is there anything else that our viewers should know about mowing and carbon reduction and sequestration?
Yeah. Absolutely, Dan. And Dan Scheid and I have talked about this in this carbon committee. We talk about co-benefits, right? It's not just about reducing carbon, but what are the other things you get from doing this? So cost reduction is one people watching probably thinking about. If you mow less, right, you're going to spend less on gas. You're going to spend less on labor. You're going to extend equipment lifetimes. That's all good stuff from a bottom line perspective. But there's some other things. So like Dan said, we're going to do some research on the sequestration aspect. So how much can we put back down into the ground based on how you relax mowing? Maybe you're putting more into the ground. With the meadow areas, pollinator habitat. So you're going to see some flowering plants, right? You could see a bit of that in Dan's background. That's going to encourage more native pollinators to be in the area. There's some evidence, actually, some work down we're doing in Brooklyn, New York, at a cemetery down there, Greenwood Cemetery, where the birders are seeing more birds coming to meadow areas. They have more basically prey to look at. So there's a lot of other things than just the carbon aspect that we're interested in and that really we want to communicate, right, Dan?
Yeah, and you know, and again, there's the benefits continue too, because stormwater management has become a big thing in our world these days, right? With more paved surfaces, we need better stormwater management, so we get improved stormwater. You reduce the rate of the water flow. So there's again, there are a lot of benefits for something that really is not, you know, not even a no cost, but a cost savings. But along those lines, Dan, I think it's real important that you take the opportunity to inform and communicate what you're doing to your community, because you need to make sure that they're aware. You have to hope that some of your stakeholders are okay with this. This may not fly at every place. Cornell being, you know, one of the leading colleges in sustainability with a platinum stars rating, we look for opportunities. So we have the opportunity to do things because we're not being, we're not being asked, did your mower break down when you were cutting that slope? Because we're not only communicating it, but as you can see in Carl's, and you can see behind my head here, in some of our meadow areas, we put up signs that essentially say tall grass, small gas, and then we have some information about what we're doing and why we're doing. So I think the important thing is, one, talk to your stakeholders, let them know what you're doing, and then communicate it well so that not only your folks, but your visitors know, right? We're trying to attract students. We don't want to look like an unkempt campus. So if people are coming, we want them to know why we're not mowing. And then maybe that becomes an actual selling point to some of the parents to see that we're actively involved in these things.
Well, very good. Guys, thank you for your time and your information and insights this morning. I've been speaking with Dan Scheid and Carl Schimenti with Cornell University on mowing and carbon reduction and sequestration. I'm Dan Hounsell, editor of Facility Maintenance Decisions magazine. Thank you for joining us.